The Mariners' next move might be right around the corner. Colby, hit it.
You are Locked On Mariners, your daily Seattle Mariners podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Ahoy, sailors. It is Thursday, December 4th, 2025. You're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. My name is Tidy Gonzalez, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Colby Patnode. We're two lifelong Mariners fans who've been covering the team for over half a decade. And on today's show, we've got some new insights into what the Mariners might be working on behind the scenes right now, thanks to Adam Jude of the Seattle Times. He's posted a couple articles over the last 24 hours that have detailed the Mariners' interest in a few position players and their hopes to land a new reliever in the coming days. We'll talk about all of that, including the player names he's dropped in those articles. But before we do, I want to shout out our title sponsor today, FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. So we've heard a great amount of detail about which position players the Mariners are interested in. Obviously, there is tons of chatter about wanting to bring back Josh Naylor. The Mariners outright said that they wanted to bring back Josh Naylor. They got that done. They've said outright that they want to bring back, Jorge Polanco and Eugenio Suarez. There's been, a lot of reports about that as well to corroborate all that. But we haven't really heard anything about the Mariners and relievers, even though that's, according to the Mariners themselves, supposed to be a pretty big part of their offseason this winter. They would like to add 2 relievers. They would like to add someone to the high leverage mix. They would like to add a lefty. We know that, but we haven't heard any specific names until today. So we're going to start with the second of the 2 articles Jude has posted over on the Times, detailing the Mariners' interests in a few relievers and how they are, quote unquote, hopeful to land at least one of the 2 relievers they would like to add this winter before the end of the winter meetings next week. So Jude first reported that the Mariners actually had quite a bit of interest in Phil Maton, who's a guy that we've liked and we've talked about quite a bit here on the show over the last few months, even before the trade deadline. They had interest in him before he signed a 2-year, $14.5 million deal with the Chicago Cubs a few days ago. So that gives us potentially a better idea of which shelf the Mariners are shopping from, at least in terms of the free agent reliever market. Now, 3 of the 5 guys that Jude later went on to say that the Mariners are considering right now would have to be traded for. 4 of these 5 guys are lefties, but the 3 guys that you would have to trade for, all lefties: Matt Strahm of the Phillies, JoJo Romero of the Cardinals, and Jose Ferrer of the Washington Nationals. He also mentioned free agent lefty Hoby Milner, who we talked a bit about, and righty submariner Tyler Rogers, the righty of the Rogers twins. And we've talked about 4 of those 5 guys, Colby, but we haven't really talked about Rogers. So let's start there. Tyler Rogers, that would be definitely a different look in the Mariners bullpen.
I mean, yeah, he is a true submariner. If you guys, are into arm angles and whatnot, he throws his pitches from a negative 61 degree arm angle. So negative 90 is straight underhand. So he's pretty close to straight underhand. Yeah, and it's a sinker slider. He doesn't throw hard. He only throws 82 to 84 miles an hour. But obviously, because of the uniqueness of his arm angle, it works fantastic. He's 100th percentile in base on ball percentage. He's 100th percentile in barrel. He's 95th percentile in hard hit. He's 98th percentile in ground ball. 99th in average exit velo, and he gets some whiffs, or he gets some chases too. 63rd percentile in chase percentage. He's not going to miss bats. Like that's not what he's trying to do. He's out there trying to induce contact and soft contact, and he's very, very good at that. It'd be a very different look from anything we've seen from the Mariners recently, and would definitely be a I mean, it's so different from what the Mariners have right now out there, which is, I mean, it's the same pitch mix, sinker slider. But again, everybody on the Mariners is throwing from, low 3/4 arm slot roughly. And this guy is practically throwing underhand. And so, yeah, he's very good reliever. He's not going to miss bats. Again, that's not part of his game. He's not trying to. He's pretty good against lefties and righties last year, so there's really not a splits issue here. And it would be arguably the most unique delivery in Mariners history. I mean, I can't remember the last time they had a true, submariner. Cishek probably the closest in recent memory, and he was just sidearm. So, he would be a nice add. I would hope that he would be the second arm that they would add because, again, I think the Mariners need more whiff in their bullpen.
Yeah.
And he's not going to be that guy. But in terms of a guy who, hey, we just need the seventh inning, we just need a clean seventh, and we're up by 1 or 2, and we just need a couple ground balls here. Fine. He's just not the guy you're going to go to with runners on second and third and 1 out when you need a strikeout. He's not that guy. But I mean, he's really good. The numbers don't lie. In this case, it'll be interesting to see how much he costs, and if the Maton thing, if they were in on Maton, maybe we're looking at the Mariners not wanting to spend more than $7.5, $8 million max on their relievers, which kind of in line.
That's about where I figured they would be.
Yeah. The idea that they were ever going to be on like the Devin Williams or the Ryan Helsley types, not going to happen. It was not going to happen. Yeah. And if you thought it was, you're kind of lying to yourself. So this is what the Mariners do. They shop at not the elite price range, but they shop at the tier below that, or maybe even the tier below that, depending on how you want to look at it, particularly in the bullpen. So yeah, Rogers, how much he wants is going to be a big part of this, but he would certainly be interesting because we've talked about, wanting unique looks out of the bullpen. And we've talked a lot about that in terms of like pitch mix, like, hey, let's get some curveball guys. Let's get some changeup guys out there in the bullpen. Well, Rogers throws the sinker slider, but
it's might as well, very different.
Yes, it's very, very different. And,
and his sinker is basically a changeup.
It really is. I mean, and so, yeah, it's very different. It's unique. And so I'm intrigued just because of the difference. But again, I would really like the Mariners' best reliever that they had this winter to be a guy who can miss some more bats than Rogers currently can.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about Matt Strahm then. That's a guy that misses a lot of bats. He is the guy of these 5 that were named by Adam Jude that stands far among the rest to me.
Yep.
1 year left on his deal, $7.5 million. But he is with the Phillies, who are a contender. Mm-hmm. Dave Dombrowski hasn't been very realistic with his asks, according to reports over the last year or so. Apparently there was, Logan Gilbert mentioned for Alec Bohm, and Mason Miller also mentioned for Alec Bohm last year, which is insane.
Psycho.
But Strahm, he's one of the best relievers in baseball, regardless of handedness. Right. And he's actually, he's been good against lefties. He's been very good against righties, though, which is what makes him very intriguing to me.
Yeah. To put it in very quick terms, Strahm's a daddy, and the Mariners bullpen needs that daddy. So he gets out lefties, he gets out righties, he misses bats. He's, probably a little bit better than Gabe Speier, which, I mean, if you had a second Gabe Speier to this bullpen, like that, that now you're cooking. And so, he's going to cost something probably pretty significant, but it is only 1 year of a reliever. So maybe not quite, as expensive as some other players might be, just because his value is limited in the fact that he's only going to throw 70 innings. So, the Phillies, they also have other pieces that make sense. So maybe there's a kind of a package deal here. We talked about the Phillies a few weeks ago. Talked about them again fairly recently. There's Sosa and Bohm and some other bullpen arms that the Mariners could use, and the Phillies have a need in the corner outfield where the Mariners have a little bit of a surplus. The particularly left-handed hitting corner outfielders, they desperately need catching help. Well, I don't know if Strahm costs Harry Ford 1 year of a reliever for Harry Ford, but if you can add a couple pieces to that, maybe this is where Harry Ford comes into play. But yeah, Strahm is the best guy of the players that Jude mentioned because he misses bats. He's very good against lefties and righties. There's no real platoon splits that you have to worry about. and he's just reliable. He's been very, very good for the last 3 years. And at $7.5 million, that's a bargain. Like that's perfect. That's right about the most you're willing to spend on a reliever. And for that much money, you're not doing much better than Matt Strahm.
Yeah. Now he doesn't get a ton of whiffs, but he gets a ton of chases and he gets a ton of strikeouts. So he was 93rd percentile in chase percentage this year, only 37th percentile in whiff rate. But 10.11 Ks per nine this year, 11.35 Ks per nine last year. The funny thing is he doesn't keep the ball on the ground at all. It was a 21.2% ground ball rate this year, which was by far a career low. He's typically in the 30-ish range. That's really bad. But look, you need more swing and miss in this bullpen, and your defense was not good last year. So keeping the ball on the ground doesn't really help the Mariners a ton. And they already have guys who do that. They need to be able to miss
pretty
more
much
bats. And at the very least,
in their bullpen gets a ton of ground balls.
And at the very least, when hitters have been able to lift the ball against them, they're not putting the ball over the wall that much. Only 5.4% home run to fly ball rate this year, 5.7% last year. So at the very least, like, he's counteracting the low ground ball rate, the extremely low ground ball rate, with not that much damage being done to him on balls being hit into the air.
Right. And keep in mind, that's, pitching half of his games at Citizen Banks Park, where, that's more of a bandbox than it is here at T-Mobile Park. And the Marine Lair actually coming up with the win on a few extra fly balls. So you could see Strahm's home run to fly ball rate actually go down a little bit. I'm not worried about the fact that he doesn't get grounders. Again, if you really need a ground ball, I have Matt Brash, I have Bizzardo, I have Gabe Speier, I have Munoz. They all get a ton of ground balls.
Carlos Vargas.
Yes. So not really worried about that. I need the guy who misses bats. I need the guy who gets strikeouts. I need the guy who's really good against lefties and righties. And a guy with a long track record of doing all those things is even better. Oh, and I get him for below market value. Yeah. Sign me up.
Yeah. Strahm against lefties this year, 233, 289, 384. Or lefties against Strahm, I should say. But righties against Strahm, 196, 265, 320. And that is in 172 plate appearances. Yeah. So, and he did this last year as well. So it's not last year. Righties hit 133 against him. 133, 201, 245. Basically unhittable.
Yeah.
So Strahm's the guy for me. But we'll talk about these other three guys that we haven't really talked about yet. I mean, we talked about them in our trade preview series, but we'll talk a bit more about them in just a moment. But first, a reminder, this episode of the Locked On Mariners podcast is brought to you by Gametime. The World Cup is coming back to North America for the first time since 1994. And with 48 teams for the first time ever, it's going to be massive. But let's be honest, getting tickets is usually the hardest part. That's why the Gametime app is clutch, finally giving fans a real advantage when it comes to snagging seats. With Gametime, you can track price drops in real time, get alerts when great seats open, and buy tickets the moment they hit the app. It puts the power back in your hands and makes going to the World Cup realistic instead of impossible. Pull up the app, and the layout makes it so simple to scroll through matchups and compare seat views. Pick a game, tap a section, and have your tickets locked in within minutes. No confusion, no hunting for fine print. Prices include fees up front, which I love because there are no last second surprises at checkout. So take the guesswork out of buying World Cup tickets in every match, concert, or event with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the promo code LOCKEDONMLB. That's LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, download the app, make an account, and use the promo code LOCKEDONMLB. That's LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go, Gametime. And you're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you so much for making us your first listen. And also thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. So again, Adam Jude of the Seattle Times reporting that the Mariners are hoping to land at least one reliever before the end of the winter meetings next week. He mentioned 5 guys that the Mariners are at least doing some digging on right now in that regard. We talked about in the first segment, the two guys that, kind of most perked up our ears, and Matt Strahm and Tyler Rogers. But let's talk about these other three guys who we've talked a bit about over the last few weeks. That's Hoby Milner. That's JoJo Romero. That's Jose Ferrer of the Nationals. All three pretty interesting guys. All three lefties, but all three also kind of come with some caveats as well. Ferrer to me would be the most expensive guy of the three. Well, obviously Milner is a free agent, so that would just be money. But between Ferrer and Romero, I think Ferrer would cost the greatest return because he's the guy in the Nationals bullpen, and he's like their only guy. So it kind of feels like they would like to try and capitalize on that. And also they don't really like need to move him, even though that, the Nationals are not good. So like a good reliever to them is really worth nothing in terms of on-field production. So, but still, I think that's going to cost a little bit there if the Mariners were to trade for Jose Ferrer. So what do you think about him?
I mean, he's pretty good. He gets a ton of ground balls. In fact, I don't think anybody in baseball gets more ground balls than he does. 64%, so maybe one or two guys. But there's not a lot of swing and miss here. It's not bad. It's about league average in terms of the whiffs and the K percentage and the chase and all that. But he's a lefty who really is just sinker. Like he is almost exclusively sinker. He doesn't really throw the slider all that much. He throws to righties, he'll throw changeups as his primary. To lefties, he'll throw sliders as his primary. What's interesting about that is the data says that actually the changeup and the slider are both pretty good. Like he gets whiffs on them. There's not a lot of damage done off of those pitches. When he does decide to throw them, he just doesn't throw them that often. I mean, the sinker he'll throw, he threw the sinker, 70.6% of the time last year. And opponents hit 309. Now they only had a 420 slug because, again, lots of ground balls and all that. So that's all well and good, but 309 is pretty hefty average. And then you look at what they did against the slider and the changeup. The changeup, they hit 221 with a 324 slug. And that pitch had a 47% whiff rate. The slider had a 52.5% whiff rate last year. And opponents only hit 105 with a 158 slug. So could there be a path where this guy gets more whiffs and more strikeouts if he's willing to throw the sinker less? Maybe, and maybe that's what the Mariners want to do with him. But
well, I mean, that's what the Mariners do, right? They look at something that maybe you're not doing enough of. They identify like a really great tool that maybe you're underutilizing, and they're like, no, just throw that more. That's all you need to do. We don't need to mess with your arm angle. We don't really need to mess with your mechanics. Just throw that pitch more.
Like I said, the changeup he threw about 22% of the time. The slider he only threw about 7%. So obviously there's some kind of like, you can tell a guy to throw a pitch more, but obviously that doesn't mean that the pitch will be better just because you throw it more. Like there's confidence and all that. So how much is Ferrer really going to trust the changeup and the slider when he's basically been a sinker guy for his entire career? But the changeup and the slider have really good metrics on them. Like they look like they could be legit swing and miss pitches. And so I don't know, do you maybe also introduce a 4-seam fastball? Like he's still going to be sinker heavy. He's still going to try to get ground balls, but like, can you jump up the whiffs and the Ks and the chase a little bit? By just asking him to throw these off-speed pitches a little bit more, 5% more, 10% more, maybe. So that's kind of my thing with Ferrer. It does feel like he's more of a, maybe Bizarro type than he is a Brash type. And I think the Mariners could really use a Matt Brash type of guy. I mean, heck, if they get another Bizarro, nobody's complaining. But I also think that this is a guy who's got 4 years of club control left, and I worry that you're going to end up paying more for the club control than you are the actual impact of the reliever that you're getting. And I think that's a really dangerous thing to do when you're talking about relief arms in general. So
agreed.
Ferrer's interesting because he actually has more swing and miss in his arsenal than the numbers would suggest when you dive a little deeper. It's just, can the Mariners get to that? And I think this guy, because he has 4 years of club control left, I think you're talking about a Harry Ford type of guy. And I just, Ferrer, if he, was missing, if he was striking out, more than a batter per inning, I might be more interested in that. He's close. Like, again, it's not like he doesn't get any swing and miss. He doesn't get any strikeouts. He's just not getting top tier strikeouts from a reliever. And that's kind of where I would want the Mariners to attack this offseason.
And outside of Strahm, that's kind of the theme here with all these guys that Jude has mentioned. And it's like, hey, Mariners, you guys realize you don't have like Bobby Witt Jr. and Michael Garcia behind your pitchers, right? Like, you kind of need to miss more bats. like it's all great if you want to, induce a ton of ground balls, but if you have a below average infield defense, that's what you do. What were they, negative? Like the Mariners, I think they were like negative 30, and
it was the worst
fielding run value.
Yeah.
And
I mean, it's not even like they're elite out in the outfield with Randy Arozarena getting most of the reps out there and left. So
I think that was their overall defense, by the way. Negative 30 in fielding.
Most of that came from the infield.
Yeah.
Although they ran out some real duds out in right field while they were trying to get Victor back. So and Luke. Don't need the low lights of Dom Canzone again. Woof. But swing and miss would be better, more preferable. And so that's why Strahm is easily the guy for me out of this group. Ferrer, again, interesting because there might be more swing and miss there. There might be.
Yeah.
And if there's not, you're still getting a pretty good reliever. It's just, I don't think you're getting a guy that's worth trading the cost that would probably be associated with acquiring the player because he's got 4 years of club control left. I don't want to overpay for club control, especially on a reliever, because if he's bad enough, there's a chance you're not even tendering him a contract in 2 years or 3 years anyway.
Yeah.
So you're not even getting the full 4 years of club control if he's bad enough.
Hoby Milner is the guy of these five that I want the Mariners to avoid, because he's a true left on left guy. It's a very good one. He's a loogie, and those guys obviously have pretty clear limitations placed upon them now with the 3 batter minimum. Yeah. Milner this year, 208, lefties hit 208, 226, 300 against them. Righties hit 295, 375, 445 against him. And that's been a constant in his career as well.
Yeah.
Do I trust Dan Wilson to be able to press the right buttons with Milner and find the right lefty pockets with Milner? Absolutely not. So I'm not giving him that option.
Milner to me is just like, okay, you add Milner as your second.
Big Dan Wilson defender, Colby Patnode coming through.
No. If you add Hoby Milner as like your second lefty, okay, but the first guy you add needs to be a daddy. Like that's how you can't just go get, like, if you want to go get 2 dogs, like, the Bizzardo type of dogs, then like, fine, that could work. But Milner is just a dude. And I believe, if memory serves, he really struggled overall in the second half of last year, especially. So, like, to me, Milner is the guy I really have very little interest in. Again, it could work if you get him and then you go get, like, I don't know, Pete Fairbanks. Then it's like, okay.
Yeah. Fine, yeah. Milner, 7.08 ERA, 5.84 FIP after the trade deadline.
Yeah. So, I don't know. To me, that's like a $2-3 million guy. And it's like, hey, you want to take a shot, see if you can get back on track? Fine. But like, he has to be the second best bullpen arm at best. Yeah. Ideally the third best, which we don't think the Mariners are bringing in 3 guys. So
no, it seems like they want to bring in 2. So yeah, Milner, that's just, I'm out.
Milner,
I don't think that's
disappointing.
I don't think that's a lever that the Mariners should give Dan Wilson to pull, frankly. So I could just see that going sideways very quickly. And then there's JoJo Romero of the Cardinals. You'd have to trade for him. He's got 1 year left of club control. I don't know what his R projection is off the top of my head.
I think it's 5.
Yeah, but he's been pretty good against both righties and lefties this year. Righties hit just 220, 327, 315 against him in 151 plate appearances. Lefties hit 211, 287, 244 against him. So pretty close to being the same guy against both handednesses. Obviously a bit better against lefties, but yeah. Romero, to me, probably my second preference behind Strahm of the 5 guys that were presented by Jude. It's either him or Rodgers.
Yeah, I think Ferreira is.
It's because of the cost of Ferrer.
Yeah, it's because what I assume the cost will be to acquire him.
Yeah, what I assume the cost to be, I
Right.
should say.
If Romero and him were going to cost roughly the same, I would prefer Ferrer, obviously.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I think he's going to cost significantly more just because of the club control. And honestly, Romero and Ferrer are pretty similar pitchers. Like they have some swing and miss, but it's not the biggest part of their game. They get a ton of ground balls. They're pretty good at avoiding hard contact. Romero is sinker is his or slider is his primary pitch, but it's still sinker slider, pretty heavy. And then the changeup he'll throw 23% of the time, so it is a pitch that you do have to respect from Romero, the changeup. But yeah, it's fine. He's not as good as Gabe Speier, which I mean, to me, I would think the point would be to try and bring in a lefty who is at least on the same level as Gabe Speier. And that would be Strahm, who's probably a level above Speier. And Romero's probably just a level below. But yeah, I mean, again, there's probably some more swing and miss here, although not as much as Ferrer has shown when you look at the data. But Romero is, because he's going to be cheaper than the other trade options, we assume. I think that he is probably like the safest acquisition, just because I don't think he's going to cost all that much, both in terms of prospects given up and a salary and all that. And I just think he's probably got not the highest floor. Strahm has the highest floor and ceiling, but like I'm not worried about Romero blowing up next year really at all. Whereas with Milner, I'm very concerned about that, and even with Ferrer, I'm a little bit concerned about that. But yeah, Romero is just kind of like in the middle here. But
Yeah.
Strahm is easily the number one, without question.
So let's wrap up on this. If they do acquire a reliever by the end of next week, and it is one of these five guys, who do you think it is?
I mean, statistically, or like you're just playing like the odds, Milner is the one who's most likely to be, because he's the worst one and he's the cheapest one.
Yeah.
If you want to like actually get like outside of the analytical part of it, it feels like Romero would probably be the guy, just because, that we know the Cardinals are going to sell. We know the Mariners have already had conversations with the Cardinals repeatedly over the years. And it just feels like that's the guy. Ferreira, maybe he's next up, but the Nationals don't have to move him this winter. So they could afford to wait and kind of see if they get anything. Whereas Romero is going to get traded this winter. Strahm, again, it's just like, I would love it for it to be Strahm, but you have to deal with the crazy that is Dombrowski. And so it's kind of like is he going to be ready to move this guy at a good reasonable price by next week? I kind of doubt it, but it would be awesome if he was. So my guess would be Romero is probably if had to pick one of the five. Like, again, if you're just laying odds, Milner gets the highest odds of being that dude, but I'm going to bet on Romero if they do get something done by the end of the winter meetings.
Fingers crossed for Matt Strahm, though.
That'd be great. I mean, you could get Romero and Strahm. You can have three lefties.
Yeah.
Like, nothing wrong with that.
Well, especially when Strahm is better against righties as well than he is lefties.
I mean, look, if your three lefties are Hoby Milners, that's bad. If your three lefties are Gabe Speier or better, like, that's pretty freaking good. So don't worry about handing this all that much if all the guys are good. But it just Hoby Milner to me would just be like, ugh.
All right, let's switch gears here. Let's talk about the position player leaning article that Adam Jude put out yesterday on the Seattle Times. Go over that in just a moment. But first, a reminder, this episode of the Locked On Mariners podcast is brought to you by FanDuel. NFL Sundays move fast. One big play and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift, a receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump into the moment as live spreads and money lines adjust instantly and player props update as guys heat up. You can bet next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and more. It keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, every possibility. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. And you're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, if you want to hear from me and Colby even more and help support the show, we have a Patreon. It's called Control the Zone, and on there we talk Mariners, Seahawks, all that good stuff. For more information, go to patreon.com/Control the Zone. Link in the description. So the reliever article is not the only interesting article Adam Jude has dropped over the last 24-ish hours over on the Seattle Times. Yesterday morning, he put out an article about Jorge Polanco and some other position players regarding the Mariners with some interesting little nuggets. So he said that Polanco, there might be some more clarity on his market by the winter meetings. We'll see. But that he's kind of the Mariners' priority, and he's kind of prioritizing Seattle, but they're not really close on a deal. So who knows? Time out real quick. Future Ty here. Just wanted to quickly interject and clear something up here because I was editing and listening back to this part of the show, and I realized I kind of mischaracterized what Adam Jude said about the Polanco situation, because I was more so trying to remember what he said off the top of my head when recording this rather than actually reading the article back during the show. So what he said more so was that, you know, the Mariners have made their interest in Polanco and bringing him back well known, which we already know about, and that Seattle is believed to be Polanco's preference. So that's a little bit different than the Mariners are prioritizing Polanco and he's prioritizing them. So just wanted to make that clarification real quick. All right, back to the show. Bye. Still kind of feels like that's where things are going to end up, though, that they're going to bring back Jorge Polanco, that they're going to come to some sort of agreement. But he does have interest from other clubs as well.
But you can only wait so long.
You can only wait so long. We talked about this. Yeah, we talked about this. You gotta be able to act, and look, like I talked about on Top 5 Tuesday last week. Like, there aren't that many fallback options either if you whiff on Polo. So yeah, you kind of have to get after it. So Jude mentioned some of those fallback options. Brandon Lowe is one guy. These are, according to Jude, these are all guys that the Mariners are actually doing some level of work on right now. So Brandon Lowe, he's got 1 year left. Tampa, we talked a lot about him. Brendan Donovan, we've talked a lot about him. Sure. And then Ketel Marte. So there is a report from one of the most reputable beat writers covering the Mariners saying that the Mariners are at least doing some sort of work on Ketel Marte, which is better than I expected, frankly, given the whole contract situation. Even though it's not egregious, it's not an egregious contract or anything like that. It's very, very reasonable, especially for the player that Ketel Marte is. But I've aired my concerns about that just based on how the Mariners have operated. So that is nice to hear. And I will once again say that Ketel Marte shouldn't be the fallback if you lose out on Jorge Polanco. Jorge Polanco should be the fallback if you lose out on Ketel Marte.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So Marte, again, to me, that's the guy this offseason. He is the perfect fit for what the Mariners need right now.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this a ton. Like, he is the dude. Like, he is the one that changes the conversation. If the Mariners were to acquire Ketel Marte, pretty much regardless of what it costs, they would probably be the favorite in the American League. Now, Toronto's certainly going to have something to say about that. And obviously the Yankees are, whatever. The Red Sox are loading up. Like, it wouldn't be a cakewalk, but like on paper, if the Mariners acquired Ketel Marte, they would be the favorites to go to the World Series. So like, that's the kind of, shift changer that Ketel Marte is. Like, he is that dude. And so, yeah, he should be the positive, or he should be the priority. And, it's one of those things where it's like, look, if we get Ketel Marte and then like in January or whatever, Polanco's like, hey, I want to sign still, like, you figure it out. Like,
this you can make that work.
Right. You can,
but if they're only going to add one more bat the rest of the offseason, which has kind of been the indication that they're only going to add one more, at least significant bat, then to me, Marte has to be very much at the top of the list with a bullet. and there has to be a pretty big
Right.
gap between him and number 2.
Yeah. And he's the best hitter who's probably going to move this winter. Some people might be screaming Kyle Tucker, but like Kyle Tucker wasn't very good last year relative to expectations. So, it's one of those things. He had a really weird second half, mostly I think because of a wrist injury, if I'm remembering correctly.
I mean, he was still a 136 WRC plus
Yeah,
guy. He was
no,
basically, I think he was worth the same amount of F4 that Marte was. I think they were both 4.5.
But Marte has been more, but Marte isn't coming off of an injured year. So maybe you could argue Kyle Tucker is the better choice because it's easy to explain why he struggled in the second half. And I believe the struggles were almost exclusively power related in the second half. Because I know he went like a month and a half without hitting a home run. But look, Kyle Tucker's very good player.
He only had 22 bombs last year.
Yeah.
I mean, look, but also Marte missed more time than Tucker did last year.
But
or
if
this
you're
year.
missing time, if you're in the lineup and you're not producing, you're practically missing time. So I think here's the deal, right? Like you're not going to get Kyle Tucker, right? It's not that Kyle Tucker isn't available to you. It's just we know the Mariners aren't going to spend that.
At the very least, Marte is by and large the best
available
talent that you could realistically get.
Right. It's not a waste of time to talk about Ketel Marte. It is kind of a waste of time to talk about Kyle Tucker, if we're being honest.
Yeah.
I'd love to be wrong on that. Boy, wouldn't that be fun to wake up to? Like, oh, the Mariners spent $380 million on Kyle Tucker. Like, oh, snap. Not going to happen.
Yeah.
So Ketel Marte is the best bat you could feasibly walk away with at this deadline. And he does have one other thing that really works well is he does have some versatility to him. And while he's not, a defensive wizard, he has played a lot of second base. He has played some shortstop. He's even played some outfield. And when you talk about, hey, how do the Mariners fit these guys on the roster? Well, Jerry DiPoto talked about it last week or 2 weeks ago, last week, I think it was. He's like, hey, you kind of have to give a premium to flexibility. You have to be open because if we want to play these young guys, you have to be open to moving some other guys around to make it work. Ketel Marte could start the year at second. He could play some third for you. Heck, I bet he could figure out left field pretty quick. So, it's just one of those things where Marte just checks all the boxes. He's the guy who moves the needle the most that the Mariners could realistically acquire this winter. And you can still make other players fit. Like you figure it out. If you have an opportunity to get Ketel Marte, you do it. And then if you still want Polo and you get to January or whatever, and the deal's really favorable and you're like, man, we didn't plan to have both of these guys on the roster, but if we can, why wouldn't you? You're trying to win the freaking World Series.
Yeah.
So, Marte, like the focus right now should be on Marte until Marte is traded. It doesn't mean you can't work on other things. Obviously you can have split focus, but like he should be the priority, not Polo. And
Agreed.
So it's without any hesitation, without any question, Ketel Marte is the guy the Mariners should be focused on right now.
100%.
And, we'll see, doing some level of work isn't exactly like they're exchanging names, but like, it's probably just
but again, it's better than I thought. I figured like, contract, we're not going to sign up for, for 5 guaranteed years to a guy who's already 32 years old. Like,
but again, for all we know, like they're leaking here, like, yeah, we're in on Marte or we're interested, but they're not really. Like they've kind of already made their mind up. We don't know, but
yeah,
we do know Jude's level of contacts when he's, throwing around names. And that's not something that you should ignore. When Adam Jude lists a name, you should pay attention to that.
Yeah. So when he listed Donovan, Marte, and Lowe in the article, he says, here are other options the Mariners are exploring in the infield per sources with knowledge of the club's plans. So that's coming from someone that higher up, I would expect. So, yeah.
I think we know who it's coming from. We're just not going to say it. So,
yeah, exactly. Yeah. You guys can fill in the blanks there. So, yeah. The other thing that Jude said in that article that was kind of interesting, Michael Arroyo, one of the Mariners' top prospects, is going to play some left field in the Colombian Winter League. Now, Arroyo, that's kind of been the biggest knock on him, is like, where is he going to play? He's kind of without a position right now. Dude can hit, but where are you going to put him on the field? Because you're not just going to exclusively DH him, at least not right away, not right out of the gate. So left field, that's kind of interesting. To me, I've been saying this for a while now. I mean, this was pretty expected from my point of view, that if he sticks in the organization, he's probably the Randy Arozarena replacement in 2027 when Randy probably walks in free agency. Maybe they bring him back. Maybe they extend him, but
maybe. I doubt it.
If I had to put money on it right now, I think Randy's probably playing somewhere else in 2027. And at that point, yeah, maybe Arroyo's the guy.
Sure. I mean, isn't Arroyo's comp kind of Randy Arozarena? Like 2020, probably not going to be a great defender, but he's a pretty good athlete, and can hit.
We'll see about the over the wall power.
Yeah.
How that translates to the majors.
I think he's probably going to tap out at around 20 would be my guess, but maybe there's more. He's still a young kid.
But it's also possible he might only hit like 12 to 15.
It is, but again, he's also 21, just turned 21. Yeah. Like he's a young kid, and he's probably going to start next year in AA, but maybe AAA. I assume he's going to play.
I feel like we're going to see him at some point if he's still in the organization, which he might not be here in a couple of months' time. But but if he's still here in the organization, I think we probably see him at the major league level at some point in 2026.
Yeah, at least for a cup of coffee. I think you were talking about like prospects most likely to be traded. He's probably second or third, so there's decent odds that he's not with the org. But I believe Colombia qualified for the WBC.
Oh, okay. So you think he might be involved?
He might be playing for Team Colombia this spring and not in camp, which would potentially complicate things, but also, he's not going to.
I mean, that also might give him more, advanced reps.
Right. So it's kind of a good and bad type of situation, but he's not a plan to start on the opening day roster or be a part of it really for the first couple of months. So I assume the Mariners are fine with that. And yeah, he's definitely, he can hit. I really like Arroyo. He's a very good prospect. Left field was always going to be the move. I feel like, because like he can stand at second, he can stand at short, he could stand at third, but he's not really going to be good there. He's never been good in those spots. He's always been okay to mediocre at best at those spots. So left field was always the move. The bat profile's just fine in left field. And yeah, I guess the next thing hopefully we hear is that Harry Ford's doing a little bit of it himself. Playing a little bit of left or right field, getting those reps in at some point this winter. That would be great to hear as well. And again, assuming those two guys survive the winter in the organization, which they're probably the two prospects most likely to be traded, in the organization, at least the two impact prospects most likely to be traded in the org, they probably will factor in to some degree in 2026, along with Colt Emerson. Obviously, the Mariners have not been shy about making that clear that they expect Colt Emerson at some point, seemingly early in 2026. So going to be a lot of young players fighting for playing time. And, like Justin Hollander said last week, hey, it's really tough to ask like 3 or 4 rookies to be in your starting lineup. So we're kind of trying to navigate that. We want to give these guys opportunities, but it's really, really difficult to rely on 3, 4, rookies to be everyday players for you.
Justin said all the right things this winter. I gotta say, like everything that he said, I'm like, yes,
that's what you say, right, even if you don't mean it. That's what you say. So, I mean, we'll see how they all work out. But Arroyo playing left field, not a surprise at all. It's where he's supposed to play, I think, ultimately. And Harry Ford right now, he's the backup catcher. But again,
the more you can do,
right? And you just can't have Harry Ford sit on the bench 10 days in a row, and justify having him up at the big league level. He needs to get at bats from somewhere, and in order to do that, it means he needs to play other positions as well.
Yeah, well, and I mean, like, if those elite on base skills actually translate to the major league level, like, you want that guy in your lineup consistently. Only way you're probably going to be able to do that justifiably so is by having him learn another position or a couple of different positions.
Like Cal Raleigh DH 38 times last year. Like, cool. If he does that again, you can't justify giving Harry Ford 38 starts over a 162 game season. Right. Like, you're not doing him any favors by having him at the big league level.
Well, and especially if you got Polo back in the fold, or you trade for Marte or whatever, like you might be giving
DH at bats are going to be limited.
Yeah, DH reps are probably going to be going to other guys. So yeah. All right. That is going to do it for our show. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Locked On Mariners podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. For Colby Patnode, I'm Titan Gonzalez. Be sure to give us a follow on Twitter at LO_Mariners. You can follow me at Titan Gonzalez and Colby at CPAT11. That's CPAT11. We're also on Blue Sky. You can follow me at TDG, Colby at MLB Colby, and the show at Locked On Mariners. You can also find us on Instagram at Locked On Mariners. Have yourself a beautiful baseball day, and we'll see you next time. Peace.